Peace. That's not peace. What's peace?
Peace.
Star Trek. Star Trek. This one.
Be well and prosper.
Yeah. Live long and prosper.
Yeah.
You're listening to the WannaBes Mobcast.
So today we have a podcast episode. This is episode 20.
Dude, is it really?
It's episode 20.
No way.
Yeah.
I feel like we just started.
Maybe this is 19 because I don't know. It's something like that. It's 19 or 20. But
This is episode. Fill in number here.
Yeah. Where we are talking to Brian Pierce from the SeatTime channel, which if you follow us, you probably already follow him. And if you don't follow him, you should follow him. He's got a lot of great content across pretty much every platform out there. YouTube, he's on Instagram, TikTok. He's got an awesome podcast, and he's got a website. He does a bunch of cool stuff. Super cool guy. And he's a good writer. And just a great person that you can learn a lot from. So,
And he sells merch.
He does sell merch. Actually, I think he designs all of his own stickers. I think he is.
There you
I
go.
think he does graphic design.
He said he was a web
I don't know.
designer.
I could be very wrong about that. Sorry, Brian, if I'm spewing out false
If
information.
we're making up garbage, but he has a merch shop, so
He does.
Go check
with
that out.
some really cool artwork
yeah,
that he turns into stickers and other things.
he's got a cool presence all over the internet, and we're very excited to have him on.
So
Yeah.
Brian Pierce.
Thanks a ton for coming on. We hugely appreciate it. Just to give you a quick lay of the land, so we've got our producers, John's brother, sitting behind the camera. You can't see him. We record the whole thing. It's not going out live, and then we've got an editor who is going to make us sound halfway intelligent. The three of us, hopefully. And
Yeah, we can send you over all the video footage after if you want it for your podcast and just the content and everything. We're happy to
whatever
share
works. And then it'll go out in, I don't know, a month or something like that. We'll schedule it out to go. So.
Cool.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, and I'd say definitely I'm big on like the tagging and the contributor and all that jazz. So if you guys want to leverage that, do it.
Okay.
So
Cool.
I'm in. I'm like, why don't more people accept it? I'm like, it's free content. But whatever.
I don't know. Social media is not for everyone, clearly.
Right.
But no, we super appreciate you coming on. We're excited to talk. John was supposed to send you a list of questions. We have this doc for the podcast. It's nothing crazy.
The ball so hard on this
Yeah.
one. We got
doc.
I wrote it, and then we got 2 feet of snow dumped on us last night, and I was out all day today clearing.
How
it
long
out
have
so
you
I
been
could
in the
get here.
mountains now? What, 4 years?
Almost 5 years.
And this is the first year it snowed on him because California doesn't get any rain.
No, this is the
ever.
first year we got 9 feet of snow.
So he's been living in the mountains for years.
snow.
It's beautiful up here. Come up to the mountains, and then he literally missed the Saboba ride and other shit because he's stuck in the snow.
Yeah,
His
so
opinions changing quickly.
I am lucky to be here at all.
Lucky to be alive.
But where are you guys right now? Where is that house?
We're in Cherry Valley, which is
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with Redlands, San Bernardino, Riverside area of Southern California.
I know. Yeah.
So we're kind of right in the middle of all that.
Okay.
We're a little bit out in the country, kind of up against the mountains, but we're between Palm Springs and Redlands, Riverside.
Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting.
So.
And you're
I'm
based in
North
Texas?
I'm in North Texas. I'm about 40 minutes north of Dallas.
Okay.
Suburbs, bro.
Yep.
Suburbs.
I'm going to be in Dallas for a conference for work in a couple of weeks, actually. So.
Nice. Well, let me know. Yeah, if nothing else, it could be one of those days where I go into the office.
Right.
And they're I don't know. I gotta go take a really long lunch.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
it's funny. I do more traveling than I work remote, so I don't. Our office is in Denver, and I'm there quite a bit, but I travel around even more. So anyway.
Yeah.
Cool.
guess we can
Well,
start.
Yeah. Let's. We started 20 minutes ago.
Did we?
You
Okay.
weren't here, but
Well, okay.
let's. Let's kick off. Appreciate having you on. You want to kick off by telling us a little bit about yourself? I think a lot of people know the SeatTime brand and are familiar with you, but a little backstory is always fun.
Holy moly. Yeah. So Brian, a lot of people call me Woody, right? The SeatTime has strangely been around since 2011. So the history of SeatTime is very vastly dense and probably need mini 24 packs of Keystone lights to go back that far into the into the memory bank. But in the long run, I have been riding dirt bikes since I was 5 years old. My dad, when he was 14, bought himself a bike, and we keep talking about this and I don't remember what it was anymore, but he started riding then, got to the point where there in Southern Louisiana, he actually was able to get his pro AMA card. So he was a regional pro, right? And we all know what that means on the national level. So at that point, like, he had no chance, and that's okay. He still did phenomenal for himself where he was at and everything. Raced a couple different supercrosses there in like the Houston area, I think the Astrodome, the Superdome, things like that in New Orleans. But that's where I grew up. I grew up in New Orleans. So there's not a lot of like woods or like dirt biking, right? Like, so when we
like
were
ride on the beach or something, right? Like,
right, yeah. Well, to us, it's the bayou, right?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're all good. We got trees. They're just different because not only do they grow up, but they have knees, and they call them cypress knees. So it's literally another world, man. It's pretty nuts. They make movies about it. You should watch one or two.
Yep, you're dodging alligators and I don't know whatever.
Exactly. But that JR50 and that I started on, which was a pull start, my dad specifically got that so that I couldn't even try to kickstart it. So that tells you a lot about what he thought of me and probably how the world still is trying to figure out how to handle me. But it was the spillway. So in New Orleans, we have a levee system, and when that water starts to come into that, it would go into the spillway, right? And so that's where we would ride whenever we could. And it was really wicked because the levee system, like all the local badasses would just turn those into wicked tabletops. You know what I mean? You'd see them come and hit the big berm and just like launch off of the levees and everything. So redneck, you know what I mean? Like, we were the bayou rednecks for sure, like down there. But as Dad wanted to get back into racing, that's where we got back involved with the Southern Enduro Racers Association. So probably I was around 8 or 10. So we started going back to the enduros and stuff like that, which he had done before I was born and before he got married and everything. And so that's kind of where I started going racing. And that just means that he signed me up and I got a number, and there was a green flag and a checkered flag, and I was never the first to either of them. And so it's like, my father has pictures of me in our scrapbook, and well, somebody might be listening and wondering what a scrapbook is.
That's okay.
That's what you used to print photos.
I remember going to the scrapbooking store with my fiance at the time and spending way too much money. So
yeah, exactly.
I feel
but back then it was just pictures. You know, like that's what a scrapbook was. It didn't look pretty. Like shit
pictures
was just
on
in
paper.
There. Yeah. Man, I didn't even mean to do that, and here we are, just like aging myself.
I love it.
But there's legit pictures of me. Everybody is on one side of the picture, and I am still on the other side of the picture. So my dad puts that in the book and highlights with a Sharpie. It's like circling me. He's like, "Come on, son," and literally then points the arrow to everybody in front of me. So like, that is the quintessential Brian, right? Like XR80, I think in that picture specifically, just like loving life, zippers down, a little overweight, just chubby guy on a dirt bike. And it kind of just stayed that way, right? Like Husky 125 back even before they went in the red and white and black. So when they were still that crazy neon from the mid 90s, one of those 125s rode on one of those 250s. Yeah, it was sexy. It rode great, to be completely honest. It had like Zerk fittings that I never actually used, and so I seized those swing arm bearings, but they were there. I mean, it was really, the engineering feat was phenomenal, but as a mechanic, if you follow me on Instagram, those skills are still lacking 25 years later. But college, right? You go to college, what do? Well, you don't ride a dirt bike, you bring a mountain bike. And so I started mountain biking a lot more, and that's where I got into racing mountain bikes. I got on the LSU mountain bike team, traveled around the country doing that. I actually got to go to a couple different collegiate nationals. We were on the B team, right? So like me going was really just because we had enough racers that went to enough races that then we gained enough points that we could send people to collegiate nationals. So like, I was like, well, hey, I'll work some pizza shifts to go make some money to go do that. But I have this just like innate love of two wheels, and to me they're so connected, and I just don't understand. That's one of the things that I want to figure out how to air quotes solve with SeatTime, because when you notice like this newer brand that kind of came out, you could even see like the original logo like back there. Like back then it was dirt bikes, and now it's like stoked on two wheels, and I really do want to figure out how to bridge that gap. And I think e-bikes are going to do that, but I don't have the money to get an e-bike. So like and it was like 2006, I bought a house. My dad let me borrow a dirt bike, and it was game on. Started racing T-Sec when I moved to Texas. I actually became a AA here in Texas. So started racing then, doing different races. I think the season 11, 12, and 13, I was a AA pro here in Texas. Again, regional pro, right? You put me in a national and I'm still in the top 30, right? Like, and that's if I'm lucky, kind of a thing. And then it's just been family, kids, learning about life. And if you've watched anything from me in the past 5 years, like on a personal front, you just know that I've gone through a lot and there's been a ton of interesting growth on my front. And so the past 2 or 3 years of SeatTime has really been figuring out how to reformulate things for, like, I don't want to say new Brian, but evolved Brian, right? Evolved Woody, whatever you want to call that, because I do see things through a different lens now and I want to help people with that, right? And now that I have a son who's riding more, like Liam started riding at 5, but we're on this journey together and everybody wants me to push him. And I'm like, I want a riding buddy for life. I don't want some kid to hate me because I yell at him about racing when in the long run, I barely care about racing. You know, it's like this weird juxtaposition that it feels like we're supposed to beat up on our kids when they don't win. But it's like, I want them to not hate me. So there's that.
Dude, and then Nora, at least your kids are riding, because I've tried, and it's so funny because they both separately sat me down at one point and they were like, Dad, riding's not really my thing. But, you know, you're like, here we are.
But I hate life now.
Right. Yeah. I hear you.
Honey, lock up the guns.
Yep. But you're like, it's so the reason I backed off is exactly what you just said, though, because I'm hoping that at some point, like, even if it's just lightly, you know, they'll come back around and they won't hate me for it. So I hear you.
I think they'll see it, right? They'll see the connection that you have, not just with your friends, but with a sport and with a bigger. They're going to see it as a bigger world, but what they're not going to realize is that it's actually a smaller world, right? And that there's something super special to that when you're in this community, you know, and that's like things like CrossFit, dirt bikers, you know, like they're very tight, they're very small, and everybody drinks the Kool-Aid. Well, it's just because you are a part of it and you get it. So it's super interesting. So you never know. They could see that and be like, I need some of that Kool-Aid that Dad's drinking. Right. That's what I need.
It's some pretty good Kool-Aid.
It is some good Kool-Aid. Yeah. That's such a good way to put it, too. Like,
I drank the Kool-Aid, but I drank the right Kool-Aid. Come on.
It's not the purple poison stuff, you know? Or I'm like, can't drink my Kool-Aid.
It's much,
though I've been told I look a little bit more like Jesus now with the beard and long hair. I'm not gonna.
I mean, I wasn't gonna say anything, but you know,
there is that.
I love it.
There is that.
We'll start worrying when you start calling your followers disciples.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I'm pretty sure you're already aware of this. I talk a lot. I'm very energetic. So at any point, if you're like, that's enough.
Oh no, this is great.
Continue on.
People don't watch our podcast to listen to us.
We have a YouTube channel where we put videos of us up and no one watches them. So please talk away.
Let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
I think too, like what has been really cool that I want to bring up is my daughter. Like so Liam is 10 right now. Nora is 8. When she was 7 is when we got that Tarot, right? And from 5 to 7, like you're saying, I'm like, do you want to ride the PW50? We still have the PW50. Do you want to ride it? And she wouldn't. And I don't think that she ever really told me what it was, but it was the noise. The noise scared her. And the second that I showed her an electric dirt bike, she was super interested. And so then I was like, Nora,
interesting.
There, you know, at the time Mark Berg was bringing the Tarats in. He offered, you know, knowing that I had 2 kids and they're the right age and all that stuff. He offered, he's like, hey, can I send you these? Keep them till you don't need them to do, you know, to use them, do a review, make some videos. And I was like, sure, that'd be awesome. So I checked with Nora. And she was totally in. And I was like, so we went to the store, you know, to Adventure Moto and picked them up and everything. And she's been on board the whole time. And what's nuts is she's the one, she'll go ride for 20, 25 minutes on that thing. And just the exact same loop, just in the grass, doesn't need to go fast, doesn't need to whatever. Like, it's the craziest thing. Where Liam will be the one that's like done 2 laps in our little half-mile loop on my father-in-law's land. And it's like, oh, Dad. Oh God, I'm so worn out. I was like, you have no idea. I was like, him and I are not going to be riding in Colorado together anytime soon.
Yeah, it's going to take a minute, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's actually a really good idea because both my kids are on e-mountain bikes because they ride themselves to school, and it's not far, right? You know, it's a couple of miles or whatever. But that was the deal we made with them. Like, you got to take yourselves to school. I can't freaking sit in that traffic. Like, something bad's going to happen. And so I put them on e-mountain bikes, and My daughter freaking loves it, and like it's not even a serious mountain bike. It's like a halfway whatever, but its top speed's like 37. She's 37 the whole way. Like, that's awesome. I don't know how she hasn't like run cars over on her way, but it's awesome. And so now I'm thinking, like, connecting what you just said to that, like maybe like one of those the KTM Freeride or something. My son's big enough. I wonder if noise is, because noise could be a thing for him. So anyway.
And what's going to be so cool about this market is it's going to be the potential for it to be big is huge, because if you look at who's been making dirt bikes for the longest time, like they're very old in the space, right? They're very old brands in the space, where what we could see what we could potentially see is a company like Stark, right? Mm-hmm. They never make traditional motorcycles and then started making electric motorcycles. They're just coming in with an electric dirt bike. So what is that going to trickle down to potentially, right? Or then other, let's just call it what it is, Chinese knockoff brands are going to see what they made. They're going to buy it. They're going to de-engineer it. And then they're going to put out something that's half as much. And then you're just going to watch that whole industry blow up potentially, right? Like we don't know for sure, but it could be very interesting. And I know too, someone had a really good point when we were talking about electric motorcycles. 20-year-old and 30-year-old parents right now, a lot of them have never even had a gas-powered weed eater or gas-powered mower. So why are they going to buy their kid a gas-powered motorcycle when they don't know how to work on it? But the possibility of them feeling like they're buying into new technology is huge for Gen Z, right? Or whatever that, I don't even know anymore.
Comes next.
Whatever I am. Yeah, exactly. And so I'm like, holy shit, this could be cool. Like, because it could really, and then all of a sudden you see city-sponsored motocross parks again because it's for electric motorcycles. You know, it's like...
Interesting. We take the noise factor out, maybe they'll stop closing the parks, huh? Yeah, that's really interesting.
So
you're saying
I'm
a lot
excited for it.
So my kids are pushing an electric mower around the yard to mow the yard. And then we know, like, the Tesla story is basically what you just described in the automotive world. So I could see that pathway. I'd like them to do like a 6-hour battery in one of those like enduro bikes, and I'd give it a shot. But at the point we're at right now, like I'd outride the battery in 10 minutes, and then we'd have problems.
And we're definitely new into it, but that's okay. Like I'm one of the people that's excited for it. I've always kind of been a tech nut per se, and I've been a web developer for so long, so I've air quotes been in technology and watched things kind of come in. A lot of startups come from ground up to billion-dollar companies. And it's just like, man, I don't see why this can't, maybe not billions, but like there's some people that could do some really good, cool things with this technology.
I'm assuming you've tried out like the e-mountain bikes.
Man, I've only ever ridden a handful of them. And that's I rode one of the Orbeas, and it was like a dirt bike in the woods. Like I was like, oh my God. Like, especially when you just put it in whatever Ultra Boost or whatever. I don't remember what motor it had on it. But yeah, it was like I was barely pedaling and I was zipping.
And you're flying, right? So the one I have cuts it. I think they have to cut them at 20 miles an hour to otherwise you've got to go get it like street legal. But dude, you're going like uphill at 20 miles an hour, just like hanging out on the mountain bike. But it's given me a taste for what you're talking about. Like it's not an enduro bike. Like it's not there, and it wouldn't have the battery life if it was. But you could kind of feel it. You feel it coming. I agree with you. Like the pieces are there.
If they could get the price point right, it would be so cool to have a bike that you could just go out in your backyard and tool around in your own hills without ever having to worry about people hearing you or complaining about the noise. Because I mean, that's the dead giveaway.
Your neighbors aren't trying to shoot you.
Everybody knows the sound of a wound out 2-stroke. Even Myrtle down the street who wants to like shut you down with a rake.
Listen, you guys have seen me ride. People are still gonna know that I'm riding a 2-stroke in the woods in the middle of the night. Okay, like it doesn't need to be wide open for that thing to tell somebody that somebody's doing something they're not supposed to be doing.
Right. Yeah.
It opens up a whole world of potential. I don't think I could ever get away from 2-strokes, but I mean, it is tempting for its like first purpose.
Like 20 years ago, you'd have said that about like a Mustang or whatever too, and a Tesla will stomp all over it. So I could see the path. Like we're not there yet, but I could see it.
Yeah.
We'll all be wearing solar panels on our backs. And,
that'll be that's the Wolf Enduro pack of like 10 years from now. It's gonna have a bunch of somehow like fabric fabric
turtle
solar
shell,
panels like
yeah.
on the back of it. Yeah, turtle shell thing. Yeah, they're gonna have like the
right.
version 3.0, or it'll be 5.0 in 10 years, but still.
Right. Well, I was gonna say the Climb like hardback backpack. Anyway.
Yeah.
Self-powered.
Our helmet's just gonna
go forever.
We'll make it work.
So, what like? I was looking around at like all the different channels. Like I've seen SeatTime everywhere through like several of your brand iterations at this point, right?
Yeah, iterations. Yeah.
I actually had never seen the original logo, so that's really cool. I like that.
What bike is that? That's like a Harley.
I think it's an Indian.
Okay.
But so here's the thing about stock imagery, right? You don't know. Like that's like when you're building stuff like that, and you're pulling stuff from stock, because of the fact that I think it was what do they call it? Well, you're in just like it wasn't an image of an actual motorcycle that we dropped into Illustrator. It was just a clipped out piece that we could use.
Yep.
So
yeah,
that makes
but it
sense.
Still says it's a pint full of awesome, and it's got the couch, right? Because I mean, we were literally the original beer drinking, bench racing, like little like dirt bikey show. I don't even know what you want to call it anymore. Show, because that's originally what it was. It just started as a podcast in 2011.
So that's where it started. Like it's all kinds of things today, right? You've got a YouTube channel, you've got the podcast, you've got a website, you've got all the different social media channels. You're all over the place,
right? Like
there's. I know you're writing some stuff. Like, what do you when you describe SeatTime today? Like, what do you tell people it is?
Dude. So like literally that, like I realized for so long, again, the evolution of Brian, right? That I was holding myself back in the sense that I wanted to be this super energetic person, but for whatever reason, like I just felt like I wasn't supposed to be that. And any time that I quote unquote turned it on or felt like I was being myself, I could feel society kind of like pressuring that away from me, like not wanting to do that. And I will say there's a lot of alcohol in my past too. I mean, literally, I will say it like, the beer drinking bench racing show is exactly what we did. We got on the couch with a 6-pack of beer and talked about dirt bikes. Like that was what it was. But I have high energy and I want to lean into that. And so that's why this kind of like newer iteration is literally like, SeatTime, stoked on 2 wheels. Like, because that is the high energy, part. That's why like Cody Russell put that awesome, the lightning bolts in there was just to kind of bring some of that energy into it. But we create entertaining and educational dirt bike content right now. And I want that to one day, if I can get to the point where I'm not at a point, right, where it makes me a ton of money. And that's, you could say that, do I want to do SeatTime full time? Yes. And so to say that, I have to admit the goal is for it to make money, right?
Yep.
That's how jobs work. That's how a business works. And I want it to be there. It's not right now, but I do want that to one day be entertaining, educational, 2-wheeled content, right? To where it's like I can take a lot of the history that I have that I can continue to learn and build upon it, and help people learn, because that's also what I've learned a lot about myself, is that I like to see other people grow from what I can help them find, not what I can tell them, not what I can show them, not what I can give them, what I can help them find about themselves, and to dig a little bit deeper within themselves, and whether that's a challenge, whether that's a skill that they're trying to learn, or just jumping off something they've always been afraid to jump off before. Right. And so I hope that I can find a way to do that.
I love that.
And so far I haven't, like, to be completely, like, so far I have, because it's the monetary aspect of it. Like, it's just such a grind with YouTube. The podcast doesn't make any money because it's right, like in the sense of like, can a podcast make you money? Like, I can't be consistent enough to go get sponsors to feel like I'm actually like, that I can commit to anything, right? There's all these other things, like you want to talk about batshit crazy trying to sell merch, like that's like that's I don't know how people have shirt companies, like that's a grind, right? Like there's all these little things that I play in, but also too, like for me, because I'm such a learner, it's been fun. These are also all sandboxes that really interest me. And so I can tell that I'm an entrepreneur and never knew that I was an entrepreneur, if that makes sense. Like, but I kind of like picked this weird, super small thing that it's just really hard to make money at. So I haven't really done that yet.
We can totally relate to that.
Everything you said resonates. I mean, we got these chin mounts, and we move some units, but it's not going to buy a house anytime soon for anyone. So, but one thing I think is really interesting about having like a business in the industry is the access that gets you. Because like John and I are are nobodies. Like, we don't ride all that well. We don't really know anybody. But because we have this business, we do this podcast, we have a YouTube channel, it's got a couple of followers, suddenly you can like show up to a place and start talking to somebody and you feel like, oh, I'm representing my channel. So it's okay if I go like, call Graham Jarvis and ask him to come on the podcast or whatever. And like, holy shit, like people respond and you're like, oh my God, like I'm freaking nobody. And I'm out here talking to pros and like sitting around at races and like I don't actually do anything, but having this business in the space gives me this like sense of access, which to me is just so cool.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I remember I emceed Red Bull Override in 2019, right? And kind of had a little bit of connection there with Red Bull for that first one. I emceed it again in 2020, and then I got a Red Bull handler. Like I legit had a Red Bull handler that started sending me Red Bull, and they called me up. That's why I was at the Tennessee Knockout in 2021, is they were like, hey, do you want to go to the Tennessee Knockout? And I was like, yeah, but I can't afford to go. They're like, no, we're going to send you. I was like, what do you mean you're going to, I literally was like, well, what do you need me to do? They're like, no, we're just going to send you so you can go do your thing. And I was like, I was like, I don't.
Yep.
What's the catch?
Right.
There's a catch. Like, what's the catch? You need me to do what? I can be a Red Bull bitch. I'm in. Like, what's up? Like, and they were like, no,
drink all the Red Bull you push at me.
Yeah, I was like, okay. They were like, no, we're gonna send you. We're gonna get you a flight, get you a hotel, make sure that food's covered, and we want you to do what you do at the event. And I was like, okay, it's like, so I understand what you're saying, cool. Because again, like, I love being able to do this, and I wish that I could like have more opportunities to, again, bring what I feel is unique, because nobody else can be me, right? Only I can be me out there at these events, think about things the way I do and capture what I would capture, talk about it the way that I would talk about it. But it's very, very difficult to scale that. So
I hear you. I think so, John. I mean, we've always talked about kind of the point of our YouTube channel. Like, we do a lot of like how-tos and stuff, and it's literally just us figuring our shit out and then putting it on camera. And it turns out that there's not like thousands and thousands of people that watch every video, but we've got a following that, or not a following, but like we've got people that show up and routinely are like, dude, that's exactly what I was trying to figure out. I've been struggling for 6 months, or you saved me $1,000 on the shop because you let me figure this out on my own, or whatever. I'm like,
yeah, there's something
like, mission
really
accomplished.
Really satisfying about helping people figure out problems that you're just solving because you're just trying to go out and ride. But hey, if you can turn it into a video and make it into content that people enjoy, then can solve their problems. There's something satisfying about that.
I love when we get those messages. They're like, oh my God, this is exactly what I was trying to solve. Like, that's awesome. Me too at one point.
Yeah. Literally 2 months ago when I made the video, I was also solving said problem.
Yeah. That's
well, exactly I think I YouTube stole some of y'all's flex handlebars video when I was doing my vibrations video, because you guys had some of the best footage of that right there in your studio.
That thing is saga is still evolving, because now John's gonna go buy some like carbon bars or something. I don't know.
I'm on a
he's gonna be $3,000 into bars, and we're worth more than his bike in a minute. But
it's already worth more than my bike.
I think it's funny because I was talking with Cole there at Fast and about their flex bars, and I told him, I said, listen, I really want to make this video. I don't want it to be weird, but I'm going to be putting on a Mako 360. You and I are really good friends. I'm choosing that over the flex bar. And I was like, this is why. And I was like, I run the Astra handlebar because it's extremely low. And now that I'm running it and I sit on another bike, it feels like a chopper. I don't want that, right? Like I just don't. Yeah, like, and I was like, so if I were to I looked at the numbers, and even if I were to get the lowest one that you make currently, like, it would be too tall. And then about a month later, I saw that they came out with the lower, like a third tier down lowered flex bar. So I say that because that's awesome. Like that is customer feedback, right? Like, so if anybody out there has been kind of like going back and forth, one, of course you could go watch some of our videos about vibration dampening that we have, but know that like they're listening. Like, it may be uncomfortable sometimes to tell them that a product's not exactly what you're looking for, but when it makes sense for a business, like, they're gonna listen and they're gonna find a way to bring that product to market, because they know if one person says it, if they're paying attention in the right ways, they're gonna realize, like, oh, that's a product that probably more people are thinking the same thing. than just this one-off customer. Now, if somebody comes to you like a dick, like that's a totally different.
No, so we sit on the other side of that. I mean, I 100% agree with you, but like as product manufacturers, we get, let's say somebody reaches out and they says like, whatever, can you adjust the angle or something like that? Well, I figure that every person who talks to us represents at least 10 people who didn't bother to send the email, but had the same problem or the same thought or whatever. So we take all those real seriously. So it's nice to hear that Flex Bars and everyone else is maybe doing the same thing, because that's how you make a better industry.
Yeah, I think too, like that, like when you get that one email and you take that math that you just did, you're like, okay, so that's a piece of content I need to go make about my product.
Right.
Like it's that easy. Like you don't, like half the time, if you're paying attention to your customer and they're asking questions, you go answer that question with whatever platform you have, or all of them.
Yep.
Like, especially now that short form content is what it is. What I loved when I originally used Jaws with my F2 is it put it in the perfect spot. The placement, I guess vertically you could say, but then also that angle that it would bring it to out, for that when you kind of come down, I could back it all the way in, and it was perfect for that. The one thing that I always want on any mount, and nobody's done it yet, is true marks. So that you're kind of like, if I'm going to run this helmet, or if I'm like with the gripper mount, right? Yep. Because I run it in multiple variants, like I want to have marks on there so that it's like, okay, I'm in the vertical position. I'm going to go to Mark 4, whatever that is. Oh, I'm upside down. I'm going to go to Mark 8, because that's like, those are the ones that I know work really well for me. And I could see that being something too for y'all. That could be really helpful.
That's actually one of our original ideas. We built it into the product, and as we've developed the product, like it's been this whole iterative process where the manufacturing side has been super iterative. Yeah, we've changed materials a few times.
I literally can only imagine.
It's still evolving. We've got some stuff coming, but
we put those tick marks in the side so that you could actually have it for that purpose of like understanding what your tip back angle is going to be, and there could be all kinds of different uses for it. But it was hard to get the higher resolution prints to be able to actually put those tick marks into the side. So it was something we definitely experimented with.
Made for an ugly print, unfortunately. So we ended up taking them out, but hopefully
y'all's material is a lot more flexible now too, right?
We've changed so much about our mounts since the one that we sent you.
That's what comes with having so we do a lifetime warranty, and occasionally people will crash and snap the old ones, and so we went to this material, no one ever breaks them. So we're like, okay, great.
And now we're in the process of doing a whole other iteration on it, which is something we're going to come out with soon. So it's exciting to have a product that we've been able to just adapt to feedback that we get.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. You've got to do what you just said, and like you got to listen to the people that are telling you things. And but most people are never going to say anything. They're just going to move on from the product or return it or whatever. If they're not happy, those people that tell you something, that's gold every time.
Yeah. Especially if they're not a jerk. Like I hate to
there's a few
how
jerks
many
out
people
there.
in the world that are just like, this is the biggest whatever, and they're like, you like look at the picture they sent and you're like, well, of course you put it on wrong. or
there's
whatever.
Plenty of that. Yep.
Yeah, that's happened a few times.
Write those people off. But no, like people who take it seriously, like of course I'll send you another one. Of course we'll hook, whatever. Like we want to hear what they have to say. So
yeah,
that's a cool process.
I wanted to ask about the podcast So we decided to start this podcast, and I looked around and I was like, how many podcasts are there in this space? And it was like SeatTime, and there was like, I think Monster Energy does one. There's a handful of them, but there's not very many. And then when I was looking into SeatTime, the podcast, I was like, wow, you guys have been around, or you've been doing the podcast now since 2011. And like, I was wondering are you like one of the first? You have to be like one of the very first podcasts in this space.
So in 2010 is when I believe Steve Mathis, either the idea for the Pulpamex show or the year that the Pulpamex show started. Now he started, I believe he quit as a mechanic in 2007. So in 2008 is when he started. That's when he started making the transition. So it was sometime during his last year. He was like, he's talked about this. That's the only reason I really know, is that while he was trying to figure this out, he was like, I like listening to podcasts. Nobody's doing this. I'm going to start interviewing writers on my last year out and start posting that up. So that's why you have like the Steve Mathis show. I think that he still has it out there as, and that's like where he just interviews people, and you can go back and listen to some of those. There's just some pretty crazy stuff back then. And then the Pulpamex show was like 2010, 2011, but that's it. And he he even called us. I could probably find the email. He called us the Wayne's World of dirt bike podcast. And I was like,
yeah.
I know. I was just like, hell yeah, you did.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Because I mean, like, that's the idea came in a pool, right?
Okay.
Like we were sitting there talking about the Supercross from the night before, drinking a couple beers, and I'm again being kind of in the tech world, building websites as like the internet just continues to do what it has done and it's just evolve. I listen to tech podcasts, right? I got an iPhone, 07. I think I got one in 2008, 2009. So there's a podcast app, tech, like, okay, cool. I'm like, why aren't there dirt bike things? I hadn't found Steve Mathis's interviews yet. So my buddy and I are doing that. And I was like, the light bulb went off. I was like, this is the podcast. Like, this is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And SeatTime, like we all get SeatTime.
Yeah,
Like we all get it in the sense of what that is. And so I was like, us on a couch talking about dirt bikes with beer, I was like, that is yes, like I want to do that. And so we did. The problem is it's like, and I'm sure you guys know this, is like when you do that every week for a couple years, like that shit gets old really quick. And so if you go really far back, like there's zero consistency except me and my buddy Steven, who was the producer at the time, who was, I believe, is your Seth. Right back there in the back. Like, so, but it was weird because we were doing video, right? Because if not many people know this, podcast started with video. So when Apple Podcast first started, it was audio only, shitty video, and high quality video. So when we started the show, we started videoing with video.
I did not
and we
know
were
that.
putting out a video podcast. And so there was no I don't even think what YouTube was doing didn't make sense because there was no monetization yet.
Right,
like there was no Vimeo because there was no competition because YouTube wasn't big enough for competition. And so it wasn't until my buddy, a couple different people that had been co-hosts, kind of had to back out because of life reasons. I was like, this is too hard. How can I do this live so I don't have to edit all this crap afterwards? And I was like, wait, I can, like, again, watching technology, like all of the TV broadcasting platforms had just moved to laptops. I was like, okay. So I looked around and I was like, that's fairly reasonable. I think it was like $500. I got an application and a couple different inputs so I could get the camera in. So I'm using Skype. I'm using Skype, making Skype calls back in the day. I'm screencasting my screen so I can get the guest. And then I have a webcam on my computer getting me, right? And that's how I have my two inputs to be able to stream live to YouTube, like way back in the day. And then it got to the point where that was interesting and fun. And so Steven came in and helped me out. And that's when we got like cameras and like, more of the things. I mean, we streamed an enduro cross race in 2013 in Atlanta to their YouTube channel with a laptop and a couple and they were like, yeah, the broadcast truck's not going to be here. We can pay you a couple $1,000. I was like, I'm in. Like, that's easy. Like, you see what we do every night. We do that hammered. Like, we can do this sober. Like, that's fine.
It's probably more work sober.
And we totally did it. I was the host, Jordan Milbauer at the time, one of the WXC GNCC racers. She was there with me. Her husband was a cameraman. We hired a guy from the art school to be another cameraman. Like,
that's awesome.
And we broadcast. Again, that's like how technology works. It's like there's something out there that you can make the idea that you have function, and so just go do that. And is it going to be the best thing ever? Nope, but that's okay because you did it anyway.
No, that's not just how tech works.
Like,
that's how entrepreneurship works. Like, you just go do shit and it works. And sometimes it works out.
Yeah,
well, especially at that time, like the whole idea of streaming anything, especially like a race that wasn't broadcast television, like 2013. That's like really early in the whole. Yeah. Like now we think about I'm gonna turn on Netflix and I'm gonna watch a show. Like it's no big deal. But like back then, that was like pretty new stuff, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
to
it was
hear
funny
that
we borrowed we rented Kara's cameras from like borrowedlenses.com and we just had them shipped to the stadium. Like
awesome.
Like that's how just like pieced together we were.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. I mean, we're in no better shape. So John was like, hey, we should start a podcast. And we were like batted the idea around for a little while, did nothing with it. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to ask Jarvis if he'll come on our podcast. And if he will, then we'll start a podcast.
That's how that started.
Here we are.
Yep.
A year and a half in or whatever. So.
Yeah, almost 8K subscribers later.
Random. Yeah. Very random.
20 episodes later.
We just had to wait for him to injure himself, and then we could like pounce. You know?
That's the strategy. Wait for everybody to break
every angle you can find.
Yep. Like, oh, you're sitting around with nothing to do? Great. We got a call for you.
We would like to borrow some of your time.
Yeah, in the middle of COVID, it was great. Man.
So, like, I know you've been doing the podcast a long time. What's been your favorite episode so far? Is there any like highlight moments?
Interesting question. Okay. I don't know if this is my favorite, but I have to tell this story because it's way back in the gutter. And so for people to find it, especially, I don't even know if you could watch it anymore. It might not exist. We were doing, so SMS Racing in Denton, Texas, back before it was Adventure Moto in McKinney, Texas. They were, they had a Supercross team. And so it was like East. And so they had a Solitaire team. And so they had that going on. And so Brian was like, hey, come do your show from SMS and we'll have my Supercross racers on. I was like, awesome. That sounds phenomenal. So we're doing that again. Beer drinking bench racing show. Well, there were way more than 6 beers had in like the hour and a half that we did that show. And all of a sudden, I don't even know where it came from. You got to remember too, when this would happen, like people knew that we drank. And so people would come watch these shows that we would record and just drink in the background. So there's liquor, there's beer, there's all kinds of stuff going on. Half people would take their pants off trying to make us laugh, like very weird. All of a sudden, the guy Josh that's next to me, he does the thing where like everybody opened a new beer and he like I don't even know what you call it, but he capped it really quick so it would blow up. Yeah, and so then it just made everybody go, and so we all just chugged our beers. Dude vomits like just straight right there on camera in the shop. I mean, all of that beer and the beer he'd been consuming, whatever else was in his stomach, just everywhere. And I still, even, not favorite episode, but good God, like it's just, dude, those memories, they're just going to be with me forever. And we wouldn't have them if we didn't, start doing this stupid thing. But dude, it's been so amazing to be able to have, like you said, this access. There have been people that I haven't been able to have on, and I would assume it's a timing thing, whether they don't like me or not, whatever, that's cool.
We got a couple of those. We're like, no, it's just timing. We'll get you.
Yeah, but Johnny Walker, you know what I mean? Like Taddy Blazuziak, like you said, Graham Jarvis, like, and then now that I've, I don't want to call it a shift. Again, it's more of an evolution. There's just different questions that I want to ask. And so there's riders that I want to talk to. It's like, Ryan Sipes just came on, Zach Osborne just came on, and then I got a chance to talk to Alex Martin, right? And it's like, I was just able to send either text messages to get their phone numbers, or I might have already had it, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just kind of been, air quotes, easy. And I'm going to talk to Andrew Short next week for the April episode.
Nice.
And that's just phenomenal. You know what I mean? Like, and those conversations are just so epic because these are people that are really, really in a different headspace than just your traditional, like, hold it wide open and just see what happens. Like Alex Ray, I'm sure he's got some knowledge in there, and I'd love to be able to talk to him about that kind of stuff. But in the long run, that just doesn't seem like it. I don't mean that to be a cut, but it is what it is, right? Like, and these guys, I don't know. So it's been really, really cool. And then, I don't know, I think these last couple episodes, especially last year and this year, I think that there's some information that a lot of people can take and grow and be better from.
I love that.
So,
absolutely.
So you mentioned kind of, I guess, broadening to be like all things two wheels, or at least to include like cycling. Are you going to add that into the podcast? You going after like pro mountain bikers or whoever? Like,
I want to, but I think it's right now it is about the access. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that makes sense.
It is kind of one of those things, and there's a little bit of like stay in your lane that I'm afraid of also.
Oh,
if
between
that makes
mountain
sense.
bikers and dirt bikers?
Yeah. Like, because some dirt bikers will mountain bike, but if you're a mountain biker, most mountain bikers don't dirt bike.
That's very true.
So
it's so interesting too, because there's this little piece of trail that's a cross between an actual like marked OHV trail and a mountain bike trail. They run together for like a quarter of a mile, and we were passing mountain bikers up there and they lost their shit. And it's like this entire, probably 12 of us 10 of these guys ride mountain bikes like semi-seriously. So like we're right there with you, like, but those guys, but I hear you, like they were not having it. So
yeah, it's super interesting, man. Yeah, riding the Colorado Divide Trail, like whenever I get a chance to go out to Colorado and do some of that riding there out of Sargent's, there at the Tamichi Creek Trading Post, try to hit CDT and kind of hit some of those that drop up and down off of that mesa. Right. Man, it is just, it's a free-for-all. And you're just going to get some of the nicest hikers. And I've had some great conversations with some of the hikers. And others, I mean, they will legitimately hide behind a tree and then jump out like you scared them because they're trying to scare you. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, stand where we can see you so that we know to slow down. Because if you hide, we don't know that you're there. So we're going to keep the same pace. We're not going to quiet up. And it's just like...
Right.
Think about this from a logical perspective.
Look, I want to be respectful. You're making it really hard.
It's so weird, man. I just there's that's not where my headspace is, man. I get it. Like we're all in this together, and I mean that as everybody, not all dirt bikers. Like no,
dirt bikers, mountain bikers.
There's some trails up in Kern County, where my brother lives, like around Lake Isabella, that are like multi-purpose. So it's dirt biking, mountain biking, hiking, horsebacks, whatever. And it's just like a recipe for like somebody to get shot or something like.
Yeah,
we haven't really
had
the
tough one with
issues,
those too, because like in the long run, like horses, I think a majority of the time get the right of way because it's harder for them.
Yeah, there's no throttle.
They don't have they don't have the conscious self like a human does to realize it's another human on a machine, and so it's like, okay, you see a horse, like shut her down because you need that. Essentially that animal to get past you before it can spook itself. Like that's a tough one. You got
to tell the bridal party on the horseback.
Oh man, we were out on a ride
while we're telling stories
running around the Big Bear area, and we came across this bridal party on horseback, and
like drinking, riding horses, like
I don't know, they're a 12-pack in at this point. And we run up, and there's, I don't know, there must have been like 20 plus guys riding in this group, and so we're all pulled over to the side of the road, turn our bikes off. They're like riding past us, handing out beers. It was like a great interaction. It was the funniest thing.
It turned into a whole thing. No, and so then we post the clip on Instagram, and they find us, and they're like, "That was us." So we have another party on Instagram. So
we have a bridal party that follows us on Instagram.
No, it was they found us on TikTok. Of all places, like this chick finds. She's like, "That was me."
That's awesome.
And then
that's the way to make good friends with the moto community.
Dude, it blew up on TikTok, and it was just like hundreds of comments of people like, "Oh my God, the last horse rider I saw tried to kill me," and like all, and like thanks for being respectful. It was just, and it was like this whole conversation. It was so interesting to watch. Like,
wow,
this whole thing. So
that's where social media can be cool. Like
it was
where
cool.
Like you can like watch that kind of stuff happen versus the awkward hate comms that can come out as well.
No kidding.
There's two very different worlds on social media.
There's a few worlds.
Yeah, there is.
Which makes me want to ask. So with the podcast, like, how do you think about social media? Like, how are you? Obviously, you're active, but like, any insights into how you're trying to link those things together, or are you?
Man, like if I guess you could easily start with, I don't think I have it figured out, right? In that regard, enough. Like it's in the sense of like, where does my energy really need to go in life? And it has to go to my family first, right? And so like SeatTime is a pretty, even though it may not look like it sometimes, right? Like there's some strategy to saving some stuff so that it can go out at certain times and things of that nature. But I kind of have to, like with the podcast specifically, I don't put the whole episode out as a video anymore. That's not what I want the channel to be about, if that makes sense. Yep. And so I use snippets because, again, like it's about the learning from that snippet that I'll leverage. And so I do record it as video because I want to leverage those for reels. And so then I'll go back and re-listen to the podcast and find those little nuggets of truth that I really want the world to know about. Yep. And I'll put those out. So those will make it to TikTok. They'll make it to reels, obviously shorts now and things like that. And then I'll kind of find one longer segment or piece some things together. Like there's times that I'll maybe just, there's some innocent banter that happens in the middle of it, but I'm kind of like, it really takes away from and it's so it maybe was a 6-minute clip and I just removed that because I want it to be 4 and about that more, that segment. And I leverage it that way. When it comes to, I think for a long time, I think that I thought I needed people to see me as an expert.
Interesting.
And I realized that's not authentic at all. Like, that's not who I am. Like, I'm never going to be the person who's standing on the top of a podium holding the first place trophy.
Right.
That's in anything, because that's not who I am. That's not how I work. I don't fine tune anything to an nth degree in my life. Right. I am constantly searching for different ways to receive information. Like so I can make this a little bit better. This can now be a little bit better. This can kind of move forward. This can evolve in these ways. But again, it's literally that tides raising all ships kind of a thing with all the little pieces and parts that I have, versus, again, like, if I wanted to truly just push YouTube, I wouldn't be on any other platform. I would have all of my focus on YouTube. But that's not what I want to do. I enjoy doing the podcast. I enjoy playing around on social media and making these reels and being creative and goofing off. And again, like, hopefully being a jovial personality in what feels like a overtly masculine sport, right? And it's not that I'm not masculine, but in the long run, again, I don't need to come across as a bloody knuckled, blue collar, hard ass either.
Right.
And so, I kind of learned to be much more authentic to who I feel I am versus like who I think I should have been for everybody else.
I love that.
I think we get that in a.
We solved that early on. Yeah, I think you're gonna say the same thing.
when we decided we were trying to figure out what to call our channel or what turned into a company and that whole thing, right? I was asking my wife, like, what do you call a bunch of people who like want to be pros, like try hard, like go out and do stuff, but like really are never gonna be that, right? And she's like, you guys are wannabes, and that's kind of where the name came from.
Ran with it.
Yeah, we ran with that.
Well, and that made it really easy too. Like, early days of social media, like we've come a long way as riders, so we're okay today. But like, we started out really terrible, and there was a lot of like throwing the bike and just wild hooligan stuff.
There's still a lot of throwing the bike.
Well, yes, but I think it's yeah.
But
I say we're anyway.
Positioning yourself as not the expert is a great way to not have to be held accountable.
Yes, that's it. But like so social media for us took off a little bit in the early days around like tossing the bike and stuff like that. And this is so funny. There's a group we ride with here, and one of the guys was like, I didn't want to ride with you guys at first because like I watched your channel and you guys look like a bunch of hooligans. Like, I thought you were gonna get us killed out there. He's like, you guys are all right,
but we're really fun.
We're
gonna go out in style.
And all the time people are like, man, you post all your fails. I thought you couldn't ride. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Like, not trying to prove anything. So
thanks for following us. That's what you tell us. So you're saying you follow us. Thanks.
Right. So you've watched our stuff. But no, that so resonates. I love it.
So I want to talk a little bit about the riding side of things, because obviously you do a lot of riding, and it's been a big part of your life. And I know you live in Texas. So, before the early days of WannaBes, we were 3 and now we're 2, and it was because
we got dumped.
We got dumped. The third leg of our tripod moved to Texas, and he was like, "Man, there's like no mountains out here." So I'm assuming. You ride, like you said, you were going to Colorado.
He told us to get 3 dimensions, you have to go down in a hole.
You have to go below the horizon.
He's not wrong.
Yeah.
We have elevation. It's just very sharp. So there's steep stuff, but it's like it ends vastly quickly. But yeah, I mean, what's really cool is there's a property called Red River Motorcycle Trails, and it's been around since the 70s, and it is a phenomenal piece of property. Now, they have ebbed and flows with how much they support or don't support dirt bikers, but the good news is we haven't been kicked out yet. So we got that going for us. But man alive, like, that is a playground. Like, because it's just umpteenth acres, and they don't really care. Like, just go do whatever. You know what I mean? What they really don't want to see is too many air quote official things being built. You know, like you're not going to go put up, like, if they don't put up the trailhead sign, you're not going to go put up a new trailhead sign. Like, you might go make a single track, and you might have some form of hidden arrows that people know is the marking, but you're not going to go like actually aero it, right? Like,
yep.
And then there's some guys that I ride with out there, Cody, Cole and Jake, and man, those guys are awesome. Like they know that property like the back of their hands. And if you want to go do hard enduro shit, they will drag your ass through the nastiest stuff that you can find. And that's where you see things like Last Man Standing, like essentially the first hard enduro event that ever took place in the United States was at Red River, and it was called Last Man Standing. I believe it was 06. Again, it was 05. It was 05, 06, and 07. And I started riding again in 06. So my buddy, who I'd never ridden a dirt bike in Texas, my dad let me borrow a motorcycle. He takes me to Red River. And because I'd raced enduros growing up, I was like, hey, that's an arrow. Like, he's like, what's an arrow? Never raced an enduro. I was like, that's an enduro arrow. And so we start following. I was like, we found a single track. And then it got gnarly AF. And I was like, this is not an enduro. Like, again, like this was not like hard enduro in the world, like wasn't a thing. And so we go ride all this stuff. Like there's so many things we have to skip and everything. But I come home and I'm like, what just happened at Red River? I was like, what in the world? And so we found out it was the Last Man Standing had literally happened the weekend before we were out there. So then in 07, I went back out there in 07 as I started racing Toro and T-Sec, and that's where that whole thing went. But Red River is really cool. We do have a couple other little spots. Now, granted, the local cross-country series here, TCCRA, in the more northern parts, they do have a lot of properties, right? A lot of private properties that they'll have their races on. There's some that are awesome, and there's some that I don't want to be paid to go ride there. But I'm also less of a cross-country fan, too, in that regard, especially when it comes to Texas, just because there is a lot of wide open stuff. And again, like, I want single track. Yeah. Whether it's super nasty or just awesome flowy stuff, I just want single track. Barnwell Mountain, Gilmer, Texas, in East Texas is phenomenal. I mean, they have some of the coolest, flowiest, rockiest, rootiest single track out there. And so again, if somebody wants to come to Texas like that, I'll send them there. Red River, you almost need to have a guide. It's really hard to you could wander all day and miss everything. Yeah. Like it's so big and vast. You go to Barnwell though, they've got a map. They've got some things that are laid out. There is some, hidden trails and things like that, but it's a really cool piece of property. They just had a T-Sec race out there in November. I believe it's coming back for the end of the year. And that's a don't miss if you're in Texas. Like, do that. It's super fun. And it's a beating. And then after that, you kind of come into the middle. There's a couple of different places. I know Hidden Falls is a really cool place. Like B-Rad has come down to Texas a lot. That's a place that he has filmed at a lot with some good friends there. And then the Torx series does a lot of Southern Texas races. Now granted, I haven't raced any of those. I'm just going off of pictures and videos that I watched. It looks
so
like
basically you're an expert.
Obviously, right. I say it looks like they choose cooler properties, or they just have people laying out cooler tracks than TCCRA. But again, very subjective because that's literally from looking at shit on the internet. Yeah. So, as you said, I'm an expert.
It sounds like we'll have to come ride with you because our theory is that you don't go anywhere like for the first time by yourself because you're never going to find anything good. And you got to go have somebody show you the good stuff.
Man, it's just one of those things. It's like, I get traveling to Colorado. You know what I mean? It's just like, if you're coming to Texas, you're not coming here to ride. You're coming to Texas and you're also going to ride.
It's like,
right?
Right.
But you go to, I drive to Colorado. In 3 days, I drove to Colorado. I rode 120 miles on the second day. The third day, I turned around and drove home. Right? Like, that's the shit you do when the place is so badass you have to go ride. You know what I mean? You don't do that for Texas.
So we have the other problem because we have such amazing stuff to ride here that we never leave. And then after a while we realize we've been on this trail 100 times in the last 6 months. Like we probably should go somewhere else.
You're real lazy about it.
We do. No. It's just so easy though. It's
I just found out the Shady Burrow is canceled. I've done that race the past 2 years. It's in the first weekend of August and it's phenomenal. So one, put that on your list for 2024. 2023, I believe they brought the San Isabel Enduro in the Rocky Mountain Enduro circuit into that weekend. So again, that could be a really cool way to make a trip, you know, kind of like piecing that event either at the begin or an end of a weekend or like a long 4-day weekend or something like that. And that's what I chase now. I chase stuff like that again, because I don't want to do the exact same T-Sec for 10 years. I just don't. It's like,
Yeah.
I get it. Like, I can be faster. I can be more challenged because of the whatever pressure I might put on myself, but I don't want to do that. I don't want pressure to do better at the same thing next year. I want to go somewhere else and be challenged more in a different way so that I grow in a more well-rounded, fashion.
Plus it's more fun.
And so that's what I'm chasing now is more events like Shady Burrows, the harder enduros, the tough enduros. It doesn't have to be a hard enduro. Like, that's what I love about Shady Burrows. It's 2 days, 200 miles, and you are like, I just accomplished a shit ton. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
I didn't have to sit in a single bottleneck.
Right.
Like at most hard enduros, right?
Yeah, you spend half the time waiting for everyone else to go up the hill or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's too funny. Tell us a little bit about what you're riding these days.
It's the Sherco. As everybody has started calling it.
I love that.
If you guys haven't, you have to. Dude, everything that's on social right now with that motorcycle, you have to go. And I'm literally uploaded a video, and it's how to get rusted swing arm bearings unstuck. Like
more force.
It's a it's a die grinder and a carbide bit that's pneumatic. That's how rusted the shell was in the swing arm. So, but it's like, that's the kind of comedy of errors, right? So it's a 2018 Sherco. I got it in late 2017, and I've been riding it. And to be completely honest, as I've said, there's been a ton of growth that I've gone through. And one of the hardest things earlier on for me was to not just continuously bounce around on a lot of things. And everybody's gonna be like, oh, you're so ADHD. It's like, no, I didn't have focus. I didn't care. I didn't give anything the attention it deserved. And so I was unaware of how detrimental that was going to be, because what happened is that compounded over time. That compounded into a motorcycle that blew up in Colorado. That compounded into a swing arm that's completely rusted. And it took me 8 hours to free up the bearings out, right? Like, so
that's awesome.
And it's been a ton of fun and a ton of learning now, because the past 2 years for me has been that. It's been, all right, like, I care about this thing. I want to continuously do this, so I need to take better care of it, and I need to learn how to do that, because I don't have the money to buy a new bike every 2 to 3 years. I don't have the money to buy a new bike right now. So
fix it.
I either stop riding or figure it out, right?
Yeah. Like, preaching to the choir, man. I'm still riding a 2010 KTM 300, and the thing's it's
been rebuilt head to toe 4 times.
Yeah, I just keep rebuilding it. I enjoy it. I like old bikes. I honestly don't feel like there's much to be gained in like the last 10 years worth of bike development. I mean, for my level of riding.
You're still out riding them anyway. So
I love that bike. I think it's great, and I'm actually in the process of just buying all the parts I need to do a complete frame off rebuild on it. But
really?
Oh yeah. I mean, the part of the problem is like in California, you can't get a plated 2-stroke, and I just happened to get one of the like 5 plated 2-strokes. Yeah. And so I'm never going to sell this bike. I'm just going to keep rebuilding it until literally the wheels are falling off, anymore. Which is pretty close to where it's at. Yeah. No, it's had, since I've owned it, this will be the 5th top end rebuild and then 1 full engine rebuild. And when I got it, the bike had a cylinder on it where the Nicosil was worn through, and I haven't worn through this Nicosil yet, and I'd probably do a top end every 100 to 200 hours because it doesn't have an hour meter on it. So it's probably got several thousand hours on it, I want to say. Anyways, so
awesome.
Yeah. I'm all about rebuilding bikes and just.
And have you done the bottom end on it yourself, or did you have somebody else do that?
No, I did that. So I was a mechanic for like 8 years, and I'm pretty mechanically savvy, and I enjoy working on the bikes. So that's just something that, I tore down, and it hasn't blown up on me yet. So
the break-in ride was 3 days in Kennedy Meadows.
Yeah, no, I slapped it back together, and we were just like, okay, we're going to go do like 200 miles of trails.
Did you even start it before we went up there?
I did. I just made sure that it ran.
That's right. You started putting it in the truck. And then
and then we got in the truck and we left.
Like, hope it runs for 3 days.
And it ran.
Yeah, see what happens.
Run. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to do, I don't need to do my bottom end yet, but I think I'd love to be able to do it before the end of the year. Like I did the top end a handful of months ago, made a video about that. It's like, it's the learning, it's the me going through it, me being confused, me calling people, right? Like learning all the things, because I hadn't done a top end on it since I had by like 2013, and it's just been a while. But now that I know for sure I want to do the bottom end because it's just been a long time on that bike. I think that would be a really cool trip. So drive back up to Montrose to go hang out with Morgan and Highland Cycles, buy all the parts that I need for my Sherco and stuff like that. Oh, it's a Sherco 300 two-stroke. I didn't even say that, but
we picked up on it.
And go up there and make, you figured it out.
Yeah.
Make a bunch of cool videos like doing that, right? Like the journey of driving across the country again and going over there and learning how to do a bottom end, from Morgan. I love what he's doing with the Highland Cycles and the Gospel of Two Wheels and his show that he's putting out and everything. And riding with him is awesome. Like what they have between Peach Valley and the Plateau is vastly two different terrains, and they're like an hour and a half apart.
That's so cool.
Yeah. That's insane. I mean, it's Aspen Tree, Colorado, and then if you drive back into Montrose and then go 30 minutes, I don't even think it's 30 minutes. You're at Peach Valley, which is desert.
Yeah. So
love it.
We've interviewed most of the Sherco factory team at this point. But other than that,
they're faster than me. I don't know if that's what you're asking.
Just a little though.
Yeah.
No, I was wondering how you like the Sherco.
I love it. Love it. I mean, love it. Like the sure can't is the running joke, and I want to use it now because it makes me giggle. So funny. I know it'll make other people laugh. So when I did our last SeatTime Adventures, there's a whole nother like SeatTime Adventures journey and all of this. We did our last SeatTime Adventures in 2017. I rode a 2017 Sherco 450, and I was riding that. I broke a plastic T-joint in the hose in the radiator, and I had my KTM 350 with me as a backup bike. When I got on that bike was a pig. Like I was like, this bike sucks. That Sherco is way better than I thought it was. It handles phenomenally. And even though it was like 20 pounds heavier, it felt 50 pounds lighter. It was insane. So I was like, okay, I had been saving up money. I knew I was going to be buying a new two-stroke. I wanted to go back to a two-stroke from a four-stroke, have a little bit more fun. And so I just reached back out to Clay Stuckey because he was the Sherco rep at the time still, or the distributor here in the States. And he was able to cut me a nice deal on that 18, and that's when I got that. And I would get another Sherco in a heartbeat. I haven't had any issues with parts, none of the things that people say. The only person that I've talked to is Chris from Trailbound. Like I was talking to him at King of the Motos, and he is like, I don't like it. I don't gel with it. It just does things I don't like, and I'm like, wow. But again. We're all different.
But he had a bad experience and sucked some dirt through or whatever.
I thought it was his gas.
Was it? Oh, maybe.
Yeah, I think that was King of the Motos.
And he still has that Sherco sitting there. Like you see it in the background of some of his posts and stuff. And I was like, "What are you doing?" Yeah. He's like, I was like, "Man," I was like, "I'll take it." That's what we're doing here. Like,
if you're trying to give it away.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But again, like I'm not gonna. Yeah. Whatever. I love it.
Yeah.
Like it's insane.
That's cool.
So I think I answered my next question, which was like, if you were going to build out a bike, what would your dream bike be? But
rusted bearings are a place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah. But though I don't have a specific bike, but I realized that I think there is a barn build in my future.
Okay.
Tearing down this bike to get to because when I was realizing, I was like, man, I'm in for it. Like, holy snikes. Like I was like, there's more I need to look at. So I took just about everything off, right? Except the engine still sitting in the frame. I even took the triple clamps off to re-grease everything. And then the wiring harness. I didn't actually remove it completely from the frame. It was still hanging on the skeleton. And as I'm going through this and starting to piece things back together, I realized I was like, whoa, I'm enjoying this. I was like,
nice.
Well, that was like, there's some methodical like thing to this that I'm okay with. And I'm like, I think I want to see what it would take again in that learning aspect of like, I know it would be hard, but like find something that's $1,500, that it may not be running, but it's gonna run, right? That it's not completely clapped out or blown out or whatever.
Right.
And like, okay, like I'm going to tear it down and I'm going to rebuild it.
Yep.
And I'm like, I can't do that next week, right? But I'm like, I think that's in my future somewhere. I think it would be a 125. because I haven't had a 125 in forever.
Yep.
I don't know if it's a bike for me. I don't know if SeatTime's gonna start doing dirt bike giveaway like Dirt Bike Channel does. Maybe that's what it turns into. Like, listen, I just need to sell 20 shirts for $20 and the bike's paid for. Okay, like we're good. But I think it'd be really cool, and it would be a hell. I mean,
it would be
the
cool.
content, the learning, like all of that stuff, I think would be super neat.
Yeah,
so I think it'd be a 125. I don't know if I have a brand in mind at that point. Maybe a YZ, because there probably are a shit ton of YZ 125s in garages or barns.
For sure.
We had Jay from Dirt Bike TV on a couple weeks back, and we were talking to him about some of the RM 125s that he's been doing builds on. And
he's building them out to be like race bikes. Like,
but it's kind of cool to watch them. You know, they come in as the box parts, and he strips them down to the frame and tinkers with them, and you know he's good enough at it that they turn into these beautiful running machines when he's done, and it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Like you turn that from a bucket of bolts and rusty parts to like an actual
high
functional.
Yeah. That is cool. I feel like we've eaten a lot of your time, but
we're getting there.
There's one thing I wanted to talk to you about. So I have arthritis. I think I've talked about that a few times on the show and whatever. And if I'm not totally mixing up our conversation, I'm pretty sure you and I had that conversation on Instagram like a year ago. So I don't know if you're comfortable, talking about that for a few minutes. But I think, it's something we share, and I have some insights into what that's like, and I would love to hear your story around that. Like, I have specific questions, but if you want to just sort of talk about it, I feel like you wouldn't have any problem telling that story, if you don't mind.
No, I just have to say thank you. I have been actively looking for opportunities to kind of like share that story, because I do think it can be very helpful.
I totally
even if
agree.
it's not to a specific autoimmune disease that someone else might have, right? That they can be very relatable, right?
Oh,
so
for sure.
I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis in what would have been late 2020, because that's when my symptoms just like took over, and I was in a shit ton of pain. I was extremely unhappy. I had the worst brain fog I'd ever have. In the long run, like I was already realizing I was about to get fired from my job because of all of this. It just hadn't really like come to fruition yet. That's how out of life I was, right? But the problem is that because of COVID, all the doctors were shut down. Unless you were like an emergency or a hospital, like nothing was open.
If you weren't bleeding out.
It was exactly. And so by the time that I could even get an appointment, it was like mid 2021 or something crazy like that, right? Like I was trying to make these appointments, and they're like, okay, so yes, you have psoriatic arthritis. What is psoriatic arthritis? Psoriatic arthritis is an autoimmune disease, and the psoriatic part is psoriasis. So skin weirdness, right? There's like some people have rashes. In other pictures, you might notice that I have these like red blotches underneath my eyes. That's part of my psoriasis, little things like that, those little rashes that come out. I have really dry knees. That's not because of an overactive OnlyFans. That's just by my psoriasis. But what is an autoimmune disease? It's just like when your white blood cells are attacking other healthy cells, right? And so that's not supposed to happen. Your body is attacking itself. When I went in to see the rheumatologist a couple different times, she told me, eat less sugar, take vitamin D, and the anti-inflammatory. It's anti-inflammatory. Yeah. And so we get on all these medicines and stuff like that, but the nutritional value was shit. I was like, that's like, you scribbled on a piece of paper to me 3 things. I was like, you're lucky that I'm someone who's in a place of my life that actually even knows what you're talking about. Like, I'm sorry, if this is an obese person that's coming in here looking for help, all you're going to do is give them drugs. You're not, this nutritional value that you're talking about is shit. And so I was like, that's my journey. And I started talking about that to different people. And at the CrossFit box that I go to, someone knew someone else, autoimmune, blah, 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 got a book for me. And it's called The Walls Protocol. Now, The Walls Protocol, she's got a TED Talk, all this other kind of stuff. Terry Walls is her name. She's an MD, now a functional medicine practitioner. She essentially reversed her multiple sclerosis with diet. And if you just want to like really break it down, a metric fuck ton of vegetables and fruit. Why? Okay, again, your body is attacking itself. Why is your body attacking itself? Well, your cells aren't working as well as they're supposed to. So in her mind, she is, again, a doctor. She's like, then I need to break down exactly where things are breaking down in the cell. Well, she comes down, it's to the mitochondria. The mitochondria are the power plant of our cells. What do they need? They need all the nutrients that are in fruit and in vegetables. So she just inundates her body and eats daily as many fruits and vegetables as she can. And over time, now we're talking meats, we're talking many other things that are coming in here, but everything's whole foods, no processed. Essentially, it's a paleo-ish diet, but metric crap ton of veggies and fruits. And she was able to essentially reverse her multiple sclerosis by about 75%. That's insane, by the way. She was in a reclining wheelchair, moving around, had already contemplated suicide a handful of times, to a point where now she can walk around with a cane. Like, that's a big ass deal. And so I was like, this is what I have to do. I showed it to my wife. I found a functional medicine practitioner that was certified by the same certification that she has, the same organization she's a part of. I went and did a lot of blood work, and I did a lot of testing with them, again, to figure out like where I'm at in space and time with everything that's going on inside of my body. I do take a handful of supplements, but they're hormonal supplements. It's really just DHEA, which is to help with testosterone. But again, it's more along, it's not a testosterone supplement because it's earlier up in the chain of when that testosterone is produced, the hormonal chain of that. And so with that, and literally a whole foods diet, I do not eat sugar, period. Like there's no processed food. I try to keep processed foods out of my body. The places that like my cheat meal is gluten-free tortilla chips, like the corn ones. You know what I mean? Right. Like, and my kids are always like, well, take them to ice cream parlors, and they're like, Dad, it's just one bite. I was like, you don't understand. Sugar hurts me. When I eat sugar, everything aches, and I become extremely inflamed. And so I choose to not eat sugar, right? I mean, that's like, sugar hurts me. I don't want to hurt. I don't eat sugar. That's about as black and white as I can make it for anybody else. But that was a hard place to get to, a very hard place to get to. And I wouldn't have been ready before 2019, right? Like, again, I talk about like my journey to get to kind of where I am now that really starts for me around 2018. And there's this trajectory of self-discovery of really kind of like, who is Brian? You know, and all of this fun, interesting stuff. And I love writing about that. I write about that on my Substack because there's just a bunch of weird shit up in here, right?
That's cool. It's a cool story. Like, it's a cool journey because I've been dealing with this. My version is I get a lot of joint pain. There's variations. I have a friend who has Crohn's disease, right? Very this similar whatever mutation, whatever it is, and both he and I talk a lot about how you've got to do that journey that you just talked about. You've got to figure out like what hurts you, and you've got to stop doing it. And in my case, I found I have to start exercising way more than I was because I took a lot of ibuprofen and all kinds of stuff years back to like just to mitigate the symptoms. Ended up with stomach ulcers. Like it was bad. Right. What I found is staying really active is a treatment, like a legit treatment. It's
motion is lotion, baby.
It gets you pumping, clears stuff out. Like it's great, but it hurts to exercise sometimes. Like I have problems with all my knees and my ankles and all that. And so I like the motion of exercising can be painful, but afterwards I'll get better and I get 3 or 4 days out of it where I'm like in much better condition. And so I've got to keep going every 3 or 4 days. I've got to go do something that's hard, that's intense, and like creating the version of you where that's okay. Like you were just saying, like you're okay not eating ice cream with your kids or whatever. I have the same thing around exercise. Like, and I've tried to turn it into a superpower because now this is like the reason that I get up and every weekend, rain or shine, we go ride because that's one of my exercises. I'm going to get that in. Nice. I need those hours because that's what's going to keep me going through the week. That's how I'm going to sit at my desk and do my job and get paid and all that stuff. Without that, I had the same problem that you did. I actually quit a job. I was falling apart, sitting at my desk every day, not exercising enough, like crumbling, and had to go through that same journey. So I so appreciate that.
Yeah. Cody Russell, he's become a really good friend of mine now, a good riding buddy and stuff like that. We were talking on the way back from Barnwell about, we wonder why does it take these landslide moments in life for us to realize that we've put ourselves in a very deep, dark hole. Right. Like, why does it take rock bottom to realize that you don't even have a handhold to get out of the hole that you're in? You know what I mean? Yeah. And you have to kind of like mentally start building it to be able to piece it together, to be able to look up at the light. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I don't understand that. And so I think part of my energy is to showcase how much joy there is, and that you don't, like, if you're unhappy, you don't need to be.
Right.
And if you and you can do something about that. You can do something about that right now, because you're the one choosing to be unhappy. And I know, like, there's so many ways that we could take that, but it's very interesting, man. And so,
No,
like,
I totally agree.
So I appreciate you allowing me to have that moment to kind of talk a little bit about it.
We talk about it a little bit on various, bar setups for when your wrists hurt and all kinds of stuff. So it's something we cover on our channel a little bit.
Well, it's moved me in a direction I never thought. I mean, you can kind of, there's a white box sitting back there. That's my nutrition books. Like, I just got certified with Precision Nutrition. Like, so I'm a certified nutritionist now. Like, I'm starting to try to figure out what that looks like for me. Like, how can I start picking up clients? I started putting nutrition content out with SeatTime for race day nutrition, like what that should look like. Awesome. Like, how can we be smarter about this on the bike, And I think that this is part of that evolution of me, that it's like, I didn't realize that I cared about this, but it's like, it has helped me. My journey with nutrition has helped me so much in so many different parts of my life that are obviously not just riding.
Yep.
That I want to help other people with that. And I hope that they're figuring out how they can learn to listen, because most people aren't listening, right? They're just kind of like reacting to things as they come in life. So
yeah, I feel like we've both really been health conscious most of our life, partially because of our upbringing and,
conservative religious upbringing that had a lot of like diet constraints to it. It's a very interesting background.
Yeah. Well, we've always kind of paid attention to that, and performance as kind of just a general part of riding is always something that's been interesting to me. Like we had we had podcast with enduro method and we talked about that and like the physical performance side of it. And I'm kind of wondering if, like, you made this huge dietary shift, did you notice a change in any performance aspects with your riding abilities? Because I'm imagining, like, that probably had to have a big impact. Like, you cut sugar, everybody thinks like, oh, you're going to be kind of dead and drowsy. But like at the same time, having a cleaner diet is going to really help you in a lot of performance aspects.
Yeah, so I could take that in a couple different ways. So when I started the nutrition thing, again, like realizing it as black and white as I said it, is as cut and dry as it was for me. It's like one day I was eating like this, the next day I was eating like this. I didn't know what would happen. What happened is I lost over 20 pounds in less than 2 weeks. And it was a very painful experience. I don't say that in a, like, that's what everybody should, no one should strive for that.
Right.
No one wants that. It's very painful. And what it was is I realized that I was eating very calorically dense food, but not nutritionally dense food. Mm-hmm. So all of the processed food that we eat is very calorically dense, but it does not actually have a lot of nutritional value to our bodies. So when I switched and everything was very nutritionally dense, it's also very water-based. And so you go through it a lot quicker. And so I just needed to eat a crap ton more food. And there are days where I eat 3,500 calories. Yep. Like, just is because like I eat that many vegetables, that many fruits that I can get into my system. And on the other part where you mentioned about, you said the words performance, and then it kind of brought the word sugar. And I want to make sure that sugar is a carbohydrate, but not all carbohydrates are sugar. And I feel like everybody wants to be a gold medalist. And so they have this concept that they have to eat in the way that someone who's only looking for performance would eat, right? Yes. When we ingest a very simple sugar, like a monosaccharide, it is going to be able to be utilized in the bloodstream much quicker than a di or poly, because then it has to break it down more, right? When it gets into your body, they want to break it down so that that sugar can be utilized to do all the things that it needs to do. The problem with that is we take that mentality past the performance, right? And it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to have a gel when I go ride, or like, well, now I'm going to go have a gel when I go to the gym. Well, now I'm going to go have a gel before work because I need this for the performance. Right. And it becomes this mindset around the idea that we need sugar to perform. We don't need sugar to perform. We need carbohydrates to perform. Carbohydrates are not the devil. We need those. But the problem is that majority of what we eat or consume as performance is just sugar. And that's where we get into trouble. And I am really trying to figure out how to learn how to do this research. I don't know how to do it. I'm not a doctor. I don't know how to find doctors. None of this kind of stuff. Sugar, there is research on this. Sugar causes inflammation. Period. Why? What is it about when we consume, again, in that monosaccharide is just the chemical breakdown of sugar. What is it about when we consume that at that level and the insulin spike that happens that's created, that then our white blood cells go batshit crazy and attack everything and create inflammation that's not needed. It's not going to heal anything. It's just creating inflammation to create inflammation. But when we eat more complex carbs and more whole foods, the system doesn't do that. Right. And so that's like a big thing that's why, like, if you go watch my video, I'm not telling you don't have carbohydrates, don't drink those drinks, whether you're going to put in your bladder and stuff like that, but just realize that over time, those will compound and you're just eating sugar. Yeah. And that you need to think about it from a more whole food perspective to try to get some more carbohydrates in, more starches, right? Things like potatoes and rices, things like that, some whole grains. That you can leverage as well, that on top of some of the other stuff out there. Yep. I don't know if that was a tangent or if I was on a soapbox, so I apologize if it got a little weird.
Not at all, because for John and I, like, we've for the most part given up alcohol for the same reason. And the decision really was this simple. I want to be able to get up Saturday morning and I'm going to go ride for 8 hours, and I don't want to like feel shitty on the trail. And if that means I don't have that beer Friday night, I'm fine with that, because I'd rather ride than drink. And I think that's what you're saying. Like, it's you got to make choices. And I agree with you that it's like it's this journey. I wouldn't tell somebody else what journey to take, but I would encourage everybody to go figure their stuff out, and find what works. So, well, we've kept you a ton of time.
No, it's all good. Obviously, this has been fun, so I really appreciate it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we had a ton of fun too. We'll have to have you back on sometime, and we'll get deep. We have questions we didn't even get to, so
no, yeah, dude. I just, like, if any of this kind of crap resonated, again, on any personal level for anybody, like, I'm an open book. So if somebody wants to tell me that was too much, they can DM me about that. Or if somebody wants to like ask me questions about the nutrition, like, again, the SeatTime channel has all kinds of fun stuff that I started to put out about nutrition. Awesome. And then the learnings that I've been having on my motorcycle. There's the podcast too, where, again, had an awesome conversation with Alex Martin from Troll Training. So a lot of nutrition talk there, right? Ryan Sipes was a lot of mindset stuff. And Zach Osborne, that was like super cool. Like, he revealed some wicked stuff about tech specs and all. That actually broke the internet. That was cool. Nice. So it's like, I've been having a lot of fun with that. So if anybody's interested, man, just, give it a gander.
We will definitely link out to your stuff. We super appreciate it. I was just going to ask you, but that's perfect. So we'll put links down in the description for anybody who's interested to come find you. And we encourage people to reach out. And we love these because when they start conversations, that makes the whole thing worthwhile, like we were talking about. So
yeah. Agreed.
Yep. Cool.
Thanks, sir.
All right. Take care. Yeah. See you on the trail, man.
Take it easy. Oh, God, out soon. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
Let's do this.
Absolutely.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
See you. So that was the longest podcast I think we've recorded.
I think it might have been, but it was a lot of fun. I just connected in my mind that right in the beginning, Brian made the claim that he looked like Jesus. We're going to offend thousands of people or hundreds of people.
Well, we wish we could offend thousands of people through our podcast.
I wish I had the reach to offend
sensitive comment.
He said he looked like Jesus. We had some fun with that one. And then he told us a lot about like healthy living and like he didn't call it spirituality, but like I feel like there's an element of it to, in there. So
he could be Jesus.
I just made that connection.
The second coming already happened.
He probably
lives in Texas, which actually is
lives
about
in Texas and rides a dirt bike, which 100%
honestly
that
sounds about like Jesus to me.
Right.
So
John, now we're just gonna get shot. Straight up shot. I live in Texas also.
No, you already said where you live, and that's probably gonna make it into the final cut. So you are screwed.
I'm screwed. I got a dirt bike though. I'd run away.
But that was a super fun podcast.
It really was.
I wish I had his energy. Honestly, I don't
have his energy. Like, I'm exhausted trying to keep up. I feel like John just like quit over there.
No, I completely gave up. I showed up dead. So
I mean, you had to dig yourself out of 400 feet of snow or something. You've seen like the mammoth like tunnels to the ski cabins or whatever. John's house looks like that.
yeah.
Literally, actually, you can check our Instagram. And see
Yeah, there's a
the
few
real
clips up there of me trying to dig out, trying to make it to
ridiculous.
a ride, and I can't because my truck is snowed in. So
I no longer envy you mountain living.
no.
I'm very happy down here at the bottom.
All right. We should do a plug for the.
You know,
I got
we
one over
talked.
here.
Well,
This is the brand new
That's
one
a
then.
cooler one. So we talked about the business and the chin mounts quite a bit because Brian also has a business that you should go support. But we're going to show you what that actually means.
So we make these cool chin mounts that are for a variety of different motorcycle helmets. They're specifically designed for each individual helmet, and they're for mounting GoPros and other action cameras.
And you need one because it'll make you a star.
Will make
Or
you
something.
so much faster on the dirt bike. You have no idea.
5 more horsepower easily.
For sure.
This also is a pretty cool helmet that I might check out.
You can get a neat ADV bike with that too.
I mean, it just looks like a helmet. You can put goggles in here. I don't
Yeah,
know.
except for it has no ventilation.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, that's a good point. I mean, I just assumed air would just like come through the carbon fiber or the fiberglass this is.
So check out these mounts. We're going to drop links in the description below to all of the SeatTime channels, which there are a bunch of. We'll drop links to our mounts if you're looking for a chin mount.
You are.
And yeah, hope you enjoyed this podcast.
Yeah, like and subscribe because we got more coming.